Welcome one, welcome all. Thank you all so much for tuning in and stopping back by. Today it is about that time to go through and talk about the old games of the year and the things that could potentially be nominated at Keely's old celebration, his birthday party, his ad show thing that we tune into every year. And I don't know, we have a good time watching the announcements, and it's fun to just kind of sit here and speculate about what could be nominated for this prestigious award of Game of the Year. But today we're going to be focusing on the nominees, the 6 things that could be nominated for Game of the Year. And so yeah, what I did was, and we've done this once already this year, kind of going through it, but we got a good lay of the land at this point. We kind of know everything that's out there, and everything that's coming out. So I feel like it's a good time to go ahead and lock that prediction in. So what we have are our tiers here: the Big Six, the Bubble, and the Unlikely. So the end goal for this video is to have 6 games in that Big Six, because each year there are 6 games nominated for Game of the Year. So that's the end goal, to go through this. And I tried to go through and whittle this list down to just a slim select few. I think we got like 20 something games or so. And it's like, I didn't want to put anything in here that I just don't think has any chance in hell. There are a few things that are, once again, on the unlikely end, but I think all of these are more, more realistic than not. So yeah, I think that at least pretty much all of these games at least have some fighting chance, or at least a good majority of them. So let's go ahead and run through all of this until we lock in our final 6. And the first game that we have up on the docket is Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. I think this is absolutely a lock for the Big Six. I would be stunned if this wasn't one of the final 6 games nominated for Game of the Year. That would be asinine to me. I think this is probably the best story that has been told in a video game in 2025 so far. And it's just... Listen, I have complaints with the gameplay. I have complaints with, there's things I don't like about Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, but when you tell a story that is that damn good, I think you deserve a spot in the Big Six. And once again, I'm predicting what I think others will vote for. These are not this is not my opinion of what I would have in there. But yeah, I mean, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, just from a personal standpoint, would be pretty high up on my list as well. I loved that story, and I think it made a big enough splash this year. I think critics were you look at the review scores, it's fucking glowing, and those are the people who are voting at the end of the year, and I think it made a very, very, very big splash. So Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, I think, absolutely is in the Big Six. Monster Hunter Wilds, however, I'm actually going to go unlikely for Monster Hunter Wilds. I don't feel like this really made any splash at all. I think that it certainly, in terms of commercial splash, sure, but we know that that's not the end-all be-all when it comes to these awards. You look at Black Myth Wukong, that wasn't nominated for 2024 Game of the Year. It wasn't in contention there. You look at NCAA Football 25, wasn't nominated for Best Sports Game, which it was probably the best sports game last year, and it was the second best-selling game of the year, right behind Call of Duty. So it's not like sales are the end-all be-all, or even really matter much in general. I mean, it matters to the degree of, yeah, okay, it's great, it sold well, so that means it had mass appeal, so that means the people voting on it, you just have a more likely chance that the people voting on it have at least played the game. So yeah, that matters. But in the grand scheme of things, I just think this year's too stacked for a game with this kind of mixed critical and the fanfare just didn't seem to be there for Wilds like it did for Worlds. So I think it's unlikely. Same thing with Shadows. Smash hit, huge, sold millions and millions of copies. It's that's not going to move the needle for when you have this much competition on the docket left to go through. I just don't think it stacks up there with the other 5 games that we're going to have to find on this list. It's going to be tough to only have 5 more games, and Shadows isn't going to be in that running, in that contention. But Expedition 33 certainly is. This is undeniably a lock in the Big Six. I think this is one of the most influential games of modern times. I think you will see remnants and you will see many JRPGs and JRPG adjacent games inspired by Expedition 33 for years and years to come. Great story, god tier gameplay, some of the best gameplay I've ever experienced the best gameplay I've ever experienced in a turn-based RPG. So yeah, it's certainly gonna be in that final contention in the Big Six. Doom the Dark Ages, once again, I'm thinking unlikely. Unfortunately, it just didn't seem to quite resonate like Eternal and like 2016. I don't know, was that because it was only single player? Was it because of some of the inclusion of the mech and the dragon and did people not resonate with that? For me personally, playing through it, I just felt it got pretty repetitive pretty quickly, and I was like, okay, I get what I'm doing. Don't necessarily need to see this through to the end. It just didn't have quite that staying power. Story wasn't really doing much of anything, and when you're, solely focusing around the story and you're trying to make this single player experience, I think you got to have some kind of grip there, where it's like, okay, you keep people invested to at least some degree. Doom the Dark Ages really didn't do that for me, and it doesn't seem like it made a huge splash just in general. Split Fiction is, as much as I want to say Big Six, I think it's kind of getting into bubble territory. I think it should be there. I think Split Fiction is just a miracle of a creation. That they were able to pull this off on a technical level is nothing short of a miracle. It's crazy that this thing runs at all. And I don't want to spoil anything, but there's a part of Split Fiction where you've never seen anything like it. I guarantee you've never seen anything like it in a video game before. And it's just masterclass in video game design across the board. And just fun per second is off the charts. This is a game you can put in front of anybody, from any generation, and they will just be glued to it. It's so fucking addictive. The gameplay is so addictive, so fun. But I don't know, once again, I'm looking at the lay of the land here for what else we have on this docket. And I don't know if it's quite in that same company for, I don't know. For me personally, I want it there so bad, but just trying to be objective in terms of what I think people are going to vote for, I'm just like, I don't know. Does Split Fiction make it? I'm kind of unsure, which is unfortunate, but we'll put it in the bubble now. And once again, I don't have any obviously I don't script anything or anything like that. So we'll go through and make adjustments on the fly as we go through this thing. But yeah, I think it's more fun to kind of go through it one by one off the cuff and kind of make changes as we move through it. Blueprints is another one I think kind of ranges in that bubble territory. I think it would be beneath Split Fiction. I think if one of the two were to get in, it would be Blueprints. It would be Split Fiction over Blueprints, most likely. But Blueprints popped onto the scene and it had a wild, just the critical reception. For a while, it was the number one rated game of 2025. And people loved this thing. People were talking about it's the greatest puzzle game ever made. And, people sinking hundreds of hours into this thing. And I don't quite feel that way. I like the game. I thought it was really well designed, but I can't necessarily say I understand the kind of, just the level of fervor, the level of support that this thing had. And it seemed like it died off really quickly. It had a good couple week run and then just absolutely nothing since then. But good game for sure. And I do think it is one of those games that we could be moving up into a Big Six, depending on how this shakes out, because there was a ton of support for this thing. But we'll leave it in the bubble for right now. Mario Kart World, unlikely. With Mario Kart World, I don't think that's going to end up in the final six. didn't seem like the open world really landed with people. And I do have Mario Kart World. I haven't started it up yet, but because I just got my Switch 2 recently, but I need to play through it and kind of see for myself. Once again, this is not based on my opinion of these games, but it just didn't seem like the open world was a little bit of a letdown. And when I think to this game of like, what is the main hook, it is kind of the open world, right? That's the thing that separates it from the other Mario Kart games. And when you call it Mario Kart World and the open world falls a little flat, I think that that's going to be a bit of a letdown. So I don't think it'll get in there. Death Stranding 2, however, I do think that's probably... I think that's probably over Split Fiction and Blueprints for the final 6. For one, we know that we know Keighley would love to have Kojima on that stage receiving a Game of the Year award, which we know it's not. Like, I'm not saying it's some fixed, the fix is in, it's nothing like that. It's one of the highest rated games of the fucking year. I do think you see a little bit of that fall off with Death Stranding 2 as well, though, where it doesn't seem to quite have legs. So maybe just that kind of bump it down. I don't think it's in KCD2 Expedition 33 camp of like certain locks, but I do think it's a little bit higher than Split Fiction and Blueprints. And yeah, the people who love it absolutely love it. So you got to account for that as well. If you have like a kind of niche, but very, very passionate, very vocal group, whenever the votes are casted, and there's going to be many Death Stranding 2 fans at these different offices for these different companies who are submitting Death Stranding 2 on their ballot and wanting to push that to the top. So it seems like the hardcore kind of fandom around this is honestly, it's smaller, but it's probably more hardcore than almost anything else on this list. There's a couple others, but I think I'm going to keep it in the big 6 for now, and then we'll kind of adjust if need be. Elden Ring Night Rain, I think, is a bubble. I think it's in that bubble range for Night Rain. It's could get in there, but the reason that I'm not like confident in it being an absolute lock is I don't think that, when talking about the hardcore fandom, I think that that's absolutely the case for FromSoft fans in general, for Souls fans in general, but I think this kind of appealed outside of that demographic. You know what I mean? I don't think it's entirely targeting that demographic, and I think it benefited from that in certain ways, but also in terms of like the going out there and making sure this hits that final 6, making sure that you're voting for this at Game of the Year when those votes are being casted. I don't know if that same FromSoft fervor, that same hardcore fan base is going to be there supporting Night Rain in the same way that they were for Erdtree and base Elden Ring, So I'm going to say bubble for Night Rain. Donkey Kong Bonanza is certainly going to be in that final 6. I would be stunned if that was not in the final 6. I think this is another game that is a masterclass in video game design for designing a world with literal layers of destruction inside of this world. It's kind of fucking crazy that you're taking damn Donkey Kong and you are literally able to break through the world and get to different sub-layers of this world and run around and actually have sort of like you can actually move around underground under the damn ground that you just broke through. And I don't know, that's crazy that they were able to pull that off. And yeah, it's just a give me something to break 2001 prime Limp Bizkit era ass video game, but it's fun as hell, and I've only put a few hours into it. It's one of those, I've talked about it before, but with the Switch 2, I'm kind of just dabbling with the Switch 2 while watching some TV, jumping into a little bit more DK Bonanza. I'm in no real rush to finish it. I don't even really care if I finish it. I just like fucking around in that game world. And yeah, it's one of the highest rated games of the year. If any Nintendo game is going to get in this year, it's probably going to be this one. So that's why I put this one in over Donkey Kong or over Mario Kart World. And yeah, I mean, it's a very, very low likelihood that we see the launch of the Switch 2 without some Switch 2 exclusive software being in that final 6. So we got 4 right now, 3 in the bubble. So we don't have much room left for this Big Six, and we got a lot of games to go. So, oh boy. So we got Hollow Knight Silksong. So okay, I'm seeing what I'm gonna have to do. Death Stranding 2, I'm gonna drop to the bubble. I'm gonna put up Hollow Knight Silksong into the Big Six. I think Hollow Knight Silksong has a higher likelihood chance of cracking the Big Six than Death Stranding 2. I gotta have room. I don't want to have, if I put Death Stranding 2 and Hollow Knight in there, then that's 5 games, only leaving room for one more. And that just, we'll kind of pivot in a bit to readjust all this shit. But Silksong, I think, is almost, here's the thing with Silksong. It could almost be in that bubble range too, where it's one of two things. It comes out and people are like, oh my god, it was worth the wait. This is the greatest thing since sliced bread, the greatest Metroidvania of all time. And also keep in mind, this is going to be the greatest selling Metroidvania of all time. This will 100% be the best selling Metroidvania ever. The first game, I think, sold over 10 million copies. This game comes out and sells 15, 20 million, whatever. It will have sold more than the entire Metroid franchise at that point. And it's like, you got to, once again, commercial success doesn't really matter for much with this, but broad appeal does. And if millions and millions of people are playing that game, then millions and millions of people have a more likely chance of voting for that game, especially if it does fall into that camp of critical darling in the same way that the first game did. And you have no reason to believe it won't. The only thing I could see holding this back is it's just like people end up going, okay, well, it was more of the same. I think there was a part of the weight to Silksong that made it even more appealing than the final drop. Like, there could be that element where it's like there was a level of excitement around just waiting for this game, and that's no longer there. And so now it's just down to the game. It's time for the game to speak for itself, and I think it will do that. I think it probably would knock out something like a Death Stranding 2 if they're fighting for that 6th or 5th spot or whatever the case may be. So we'll put Silksong in there over DS2 for the time being. And then you look here at Ghost of Yotei. So Tsushima is a weird game because Tsushima is not necessarily a critical darling. It's around like an 80, 82-ish, low 80s for Tsushima. And I think Tsushima is definitely one of the best games of the PS4 generation. Makes no sense why it's that low. So I look at Yotei and I'm like, I don't know. I think you might be fighting a bit of an uphill battle. It looks better than Tsushima from a gameplay standpoint, but I trust Sucker Punch implicitly in designing great gameplay. I don't necessarily trust them with great storytelling per se. I don't think that they've necessarily made like god tier stories. They, Infamous 2, great story. Some of the Sly games, solid stories. Tsushima, good story. Maybe even great story, but none of their games are like god tier stories. And so that's the thing that I worry about with such a narrative, such a story focused video game. Yotei, I'm going to put it in the bubble. Like, there's no doubt it'll have better gameplay than Death Stranding 2. But I don't think it's necessarily going to have the same fanfare, like the same hardcore fandom as Death Stranding 2, because it just appeals to much more people. But then the broad appeal does definitely benefit Yotei as well. So we'll put it ahead of DS2 in the bubble. But let's just kind of take this bit by bit here. The Outer Worlds 2, I don't think so, man. I don't think that it's going to end up... Obsidian just seems right now, and I don't know if it's even necessarily fair, but it just seems like Obsidian is not in the good graces of the overall, like, kind of public sentiment around different developers out there, different game creators out there. Like, people were really, really harsh on Avowed. And I was like, I don't know, Avowed's really good. The combat's incredible. The story was dog shit, but the combat was some of the best first-person combat I've ever really experienced in a game. And if the Outer Worlds 2 can hit that and then also live up to that bar that Obsidian set with the Outer Worlds 1 in terms of crafting that narrative, the narrative in the Outer Worlds 1 is excellent. Absolutely god tier. So but it doesn't seem like you can just kind of read the tea leaves. Going into the Outer Worlds 2, there's just already a negative sentiment around this game. And it's such an unfortunate thing, but sometimes games don't necessarily get the chance to even be great. You know what I mean? Like, public opinion has already kind of been defined, and then it's just like, okay, well, even if the game is excellent, the public has already decided that it's not. And I think that could be the case with the Outer Worlds 2, unfortunately. I'm getting that feeling a little bit. But it's wild. Silent Hill F is actually, because it makes me think about Silent Hill 2. Silent Hill 2, everybody already decided with Bloober that it was like, they're not the team for this. This is going to suck. And sometimes a game is just so good that it gets you to sit the fuck down and shut the fuck up. And Silent Hill 2, the remake, did that. So maybe the Outer Worlds 2 can do that as well. Silent Hill F is unlikely, for sure, though. It's not going to get in there. It's Silent Hill is all about the narrative. You know, we know Silent Hill F's probably not going to have excellent gameplay or anything like that. It's going to come down to the story. But even with like Silent Hill 2, the remake, one of the best games from last year, it didn't crack the final 6. Did it crack? I don't think it cracked the final 6, and I don't think this is going to end up being better than Silent Hill 2. There's just, I would highly doubt it. But the story is looking more compelling than I thought. Like the recent trailer that we got for Silent Hill F, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this is looking really dark. It's all about that. It's all about the world, all about the atmosphere, you know, all about the voice acting, all about the tension that's built, all about it's those things, right? It's not really the gameplay. And so I'm not overly concerned about the gameplay not looking all that great, but as long as the story is excellent, then we're in business. But at the same time, Silent Hill probably not getting nominated for Game of the Year. If Silent Hill 2 isn't nominated, then I don't think any other Silent Hill game unfortunately, I don't think any other Silent Hill game will ever be nominated for Game of the Year. Ninja Gaiden 4. So, once again, a franchise that did Devil May Cry, actually, let me look that up. Did Devil May Cry 5 get nominated? So Devil May Cry 5 was not nominated for the overall Game of the Year award. And DMC5 is looked at as like one of the greatest character action games of all time. I think this is just, unfortunately, once again, kind of staying in that vein of Silent Hill. It's just, unfortunately, a type of game that doesn't quite get that same... It might get great critical reception in terms of review scores, but it just doesn't seem to carry over into awards for whatever reason. So, let's throw Ninja Gaiden 4 into the bubble. I think that it could potentially get in there if it's just like so. Here's the thing. If somehow this game has a great story, which I don't think it will, but if somehow this game just has like, what the hell? They actually crafted an excellent narrative to go on top of this god tier gameplay, and you know, if it does something to just truly surprise people from the character action space, doing things that have never been done before, because unfortunately we are in that type of year where to get nominated into that final 6 territory, you're going to have to do something that has never been done before in your genre, in your space. It's just too crowded, too packed. So we'll put it in the bubble. Mina the Hollower, I think, once again, like you look at, can you see a world realistically where Silksong and Mina the Hollower are both in the final 6? It's, you know, it seems unlikely. Just having 2 smaller scale indie games crack the top 6 in a year that's so packed. But, you know, because I don't think Shovel Knight was nominated when it came out in, that was around the launch of the last gen. So whatever year that, I don't think it was nominated for Game of the Year. And Mina the Hollower, I think, is going to have to do something where it's not just oh damn, this is a really cool kind of throwback. Once again, I think it's going to have to break the mold and truly surprise people. So heavy weight, and I think it's probably, I mean, we'll still go bubble for Mina the Hollower. Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2, unlikely. I don't think there's any chance that that's getting in there. It's with Bloodlines 2, it seems to be that a lot of the previews, a lot of the coverage surrounding this game right now is constantly praising the combat, which is awesome. Like, I do want to jump into this. I do want to check this out, but I don't really know. Like, the main question on everyone's mind surrounding Bloodlines 2 is like, okay, that's cool that the combat's good, but why is nobody talking about the story? Why are none of the previewers talking about the decision making, the narrative? Like, they're talking, the world's really cool, it's atmospheric, it's fun to explore, but it's like, great, what about the story? That's what all the Bloodlines 1 fans are curious about, and there's just, it doesn't seem to be a lot of media surrounding or relating to the story and what kind of potential that is going to have in the game. And maybe that's just bad marketing, bad, giving players the wrong preview, or giving the media the wrong preview slice to report on that doesn't feature any of that stuff. And so some of those questions, maybe they're remaining unanswered for a reason. Maybe we're going to have a Bloober style situation where there's like, oh my God, this is much better than we expected. But I don't know. I'm worried about the story for that game, for sure. With fans, like, that's the thing they want from Bloodlines 2. Borderlands 4, unlikely. Once again, this game could be as great as humanly possible, and I don't see a Borderlands game being in that final 6. I don't think it'll be in contention, unfortunately. Hell Is Us. I do think this could be one of those kind of sleeper games that get in there. It's, we'll go ahead and we'll put it in the bubble for now. But I think this could be one of those games that gets in there, because it's going to come down to, like, right now, a lot of the marketing around Hell Is Us is, you're not going to know where to go. No hand-holding in this experience. You are going to have to, like, it's all of all of that shit, and there's not really a lot in regards to, like, does the game play well? Does it feel good to play? Is it a fun video game? And it's just more marketing to, like, the hardest of the hardcore. It's like, I don't know if that's necessarily the wisest thing in the world, but at the same time, it does seem like there is quite a bit of appeal for this thing, and it seems like people are really hyped to jump into it. I look at it and I look at the combat. I'm like, that doesn't look excellent. It looks serviceable. The game, like the lore and all of that shit, that's what I'm actually really curious about. So if it's going to have a front-facing, like, a real story that it's trying to tell with cinematic cutscenes and all of that stuff, and then also have the kind of subversive sort of, make up your own story and find your own path and all of these, overly, stuff that you see in, like, the Souls games, but doing it in a way that also combines that with, like, a really good front-facing narrative. I think this could be one of those things that breaks through in a totally different way, because it's coming from some of, like, the Deus Ex. Like, I believe the founder of the studio was one of the creative directors on Human Revolution or Mankind Divided. I don't remember off the top of my head, but so there's, even in those games, the Deus Ex games, there's a lot of focus and emphasis put on agency as the player, of kind of finding your own paths. And okay, I'm going to crawl through this vent here, and I'm going to pop up and unlock this apartment door with this key I just found, and then I'm going to access the computer, and you're kind of creating your own moments through just emergent gameplay experience. And if Hell Is Us is able to do that, then I think it could be in there. There's just a lot of questions I have. So we'll put it in the bubble for now. But we have 4 games in the big 6, and okay, so let's go ahead and run through this, and then we'll sort out the rest. Battlefield 6. Battlefield 6 is interesting, because we could be in a scenario with Battlefield 6. All right, here's the thing. If Battlefield 6 is able to, it's even just what's about to come out of my mouth is so bullshit. Like, it's not going to happen. I was going to say, if Battlefield 6 is able to dethrone Call of Duty as the best-selling game of 2025. If a first-person shooter comes out and dethrones Call of Duty as the best-selling game of the year, then I think it would deserve to be nominated. If the fanfare, if the response from the fans is like, dude, this is it. Battlefield is back. And it also goes on to, topple the giant. That's a story worth, kind of getting behind, rallying behind. And I know this isn't the type of game. It's not critic bait. It's not you're not going to ponder about the existential, I want to think about my fatal fears, and you're not going to be sitting there twirling your mustache. But it's a dude bro shooter thing. But if it goes on to topple the giant that has been just sitting at the top of that mountain for decades, unfuckwithable, and this game comes along and fucks with it, and dethrones it, I don't know. And it also, obviously, I think for that to happen, though, it would have to be just mass fucking, the people love it. And so those two things combined, the sales success, toppling the giant, and then also people being like, Battlefield is back, I think it would deserve it, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think people will like the game, but it's not going to beat Call of Duty in terms of sales. And then Call of Duty could do anything, just like Borderlands. There's nothing that Call of Duty could do at this point. They could literally reinvent the wheel, and it's not going to be nominated for Game of the Year. Chronos: The New Dawn, this is one of, if not my most anticipated, it's probably my second or third most anticipated game of the year, behind Ghost and behind The Outer Worlds 2. I can't wait for this. It's not going to get nominated for Game of the Year. Chronos it's coming from Bloober, the team who made the Silent Hill 2 remake. So at this point, I trust them 100% to create an excellent game. Horror outside of Resident Evil just doesn't have a great track record with awards. I think they should have a best horror game of the year category. You can get rid of best debut indie, or you can get rid of best, some of that stuff where it feels like, okay, you have best indie and also best debut indie. Okay, you have best action and best action adventure. Okay, you have you know what I mean? Get rid of some of that best horror. There's many, dozens of great horror games released every single year. That category would be stacked every single year. But yeah, I trust that Bloober is going to crush this, and I am so excited to see potentially a new style of Dead Space experience, since EA pretty much completely gave up on Dead Space. So yeah, that's going, but it's not going to be nominated. I'm very excited for it though. So now we sit with 4 games in our big 6. We got to add 2 more to that list. So let's go ahead and finalize these predictions, lock them in. And so I don't think it's going to be Hell is Us. I need to know a little bit more about that combat, if it evolves, if it is more than just what is seen in those initial gameplay snippets. From what I've heard, it doesn't seem like that combat is just quite sticky enough. So that's the thing I worry about there. Ghost of Yotei, I worry about the storytelling. Death Stranding 2, I worry about the longevity, the legs. It doesn't quite seem that it's sticking with people. It doesn't seem like it's in conversation quite as much as some of these other things. I think Split Fiction, we'll move Split Fiction up. In that 5. And man, I'm really looking through it. Blueprints, I think, could be in there. Death Stranding 2, Ghost of Yotei. I think it comes down to those. So you know what? Let's go ahead actually and let's move all of them up. Let's move Death Stranding 2 up. Let's move Ghost of Yotei up. And let's move Blueprints up, because I think these are the games that actually have a chance. So one of these 3 games will remain, and the other 2 we're gonna have to drop back down. So Stranding 2, Yotei, or Blueprints. I'm thinking, okay, Blueprints is, I don't think it's gonna be Blueprints. I think that Silk Song will fill the indie game spot. And I hate to, it sounds like a token sort of, yeah, here's your indie game spot, the one indie game that can be on. It doesn't feel right that, and I do think in previous years there's been more than one indie game, but it does kind of typically feel like it's just one indie game thrown in there. So, Yote or Stranding 2? Man, oh man. If I trusted Sucker Punch with if this story is God tier, I think it will be Yote over Death Stranding 2. But I mean, Death Stranding 2, if I'm not mistaken, like, isn't that, if it's not the highest rated game of the year, it is like really, really up there. Actually, let's go look real quick at what the highest rated games are. Okay, so yeah, the highest rated games of 2025 for new games. Obviously, Zelda's gonna top those damn charts with the re-releases. But Clair Obscur, Blueprint, Split Fiction, Donkey Kong, Despelote. So yeah, I mean, it would be Death Stranding. It would be the only thing in there that we don't currently have in that top 6. Shout out to State Farm, I guess. Sword of the Sea, I do need to play that. I don't think it would be in there, but Sword of the Sea, I do definitely need to play. But okay, so yeah, I mean, it's up there, but it's, you know, it's at 89. That's not. Is there a world where Yote can crack a 90? I guess that becomes the question. Is there some chance in hell that Yote can crack a 90 with Tsushima only being in the low 80s? I do think the combat looks so fun in Yote. I think it looks so fun. The new firearms added in there and the ability for this kind of action movie moment to occur naturally where the sword is knocked out of your hand and you're having to fight on the ground to go and, you know, retrieve your sword, or you can take the enemy, you can, you know, get into a tussle and remove the enemy's weapon and then take their weapon and use it against them. Like, there's some shit in there that sounds so sick. But it's all from a gameplay standpoint. I just don't trust them narratively. It's not that I don't trust them. I think the story is going to be good. I just don't know if it's going to be great. And I don't feel like the Ghost fan base is quite as passionate as the fucking Strand sickos out there. So I'm going to go with Death Stranding 2. For me personally, once again, if you, I think I will like Ghost of Yote much more than Death Stranding 2, but this is 6, right? Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, Expedition 33, DK, Silk Song, Split Fiction, and Death Stranding 2. Yeah, I think those are going to be the final 6. I feel like I'm forgetting something. I don't know why, but I have this feeling that I'm forgetting something, but
8 hours later.
So, I coming back here from the future because we almost had a problem, Houston. Metroid Prime 4, I completely forgot to include in this list. That probably would not have aged well. Don't know how in the hell I forgot about Metroid Prime 4, but that needs to be in here. And I think that's, possibly, quite likely, in that big 6. You got to keep in mind, Switch 1 comes out, Odyssey, Breath of the Wild, both nominated for Game of the Year 2017. We could be in a similar spot. DK Bonanza, Metroid Prime 4. Oh, man. We got our 6 here, but something might have to drop out. Either Split Fiction or Death Stranding 2 might have to drop out to make room for Metroid Prime 4. You got to keep in mind also, Metroid Prime 1, the remaster that came out, what was that? 23, 22? That remasters at like a 95 on Metacritic. It was, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was the highest rated game the year it came out, or the year it was remastered, re-released, whatever you want to call it. I think it was one of the highest rated games that year, if not the highest rated game that year. Like, people have a yearning to go back to Metroid Prime. It has been a long, long time since a new entry in the franchise. Dude, if this is good, which I think they're going to have to do something here. It's going to have to be like a more, you know, like a story you didn't expect in terms of kind of revealing more about Samus, or like I think the first person shooting, all of that I think is going to be fine. It's going to be solid from a gameplay standpoint. I just wonder about the story. Is there going to be any story beats in there that people care about? Because they're doing a good job of, like Donkey Kong Bonanza, fleshing out the story a little bit more, making people care about that as Nintendo is getting into the silver screen, as they're trying to break into Hollywood in a more prominent manner. Metroid Prime, like a Metroid franchise, that would kind of be, you got Zelda greenlit, Mario is greenlit, I'm sure Donkey Kong is on the way, Metroid Prime is probably, or Metroid is probably next up. This would be a good gateway, because we need that moment for Metroid. We need that Breath of the Wild moment, if you will, for Metroid. I feel like this is as good of a chance as any. So, oh man, I'm going to drop Death Stranding 2, and I'm going to bump up Metroid Prime 4. I could see this coming out. I could see this aging poorly. I could see this coming out and just being like, yeah, it's a good Metroid, and doesn't move the needle whatsoever in terms of generating more buzz, hype, excitement whatsoever for the franchise. But I don't know. You got to put some level of trust in Nintendo. They have been on a mighty hot streak with their big IP. They just made Donkey Kong a main player, with Bonanza. And obviously going back with the Switch one, just crazy lineup of software, and their first party shit just typically delivers. And they have given more than enough time for Retro to, more than enough time, in my opinion, for this game. I mean, it's been like, this thing was announced like a decade ago or something like. I mean, it might not have been a decade ago. It's been a long time that Retro has been cooking this thing up. So you gotta imagine that if they're going to finally release it, they finally found a version of this, because I think they went back and completely had to rework it. And so it's like, okay, cool. They found the version that they are happy with, satisfied with. And I'm going to have to give it my vote of confidence. So my final 6 are now Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, Expedition 33, DK Bonanza, Hollow Knight Silksong, Split Fiction, and Metroid Prime 4. So I'm thinking those are going to be the final 6 games nominated at Keeley's Game Awards of 2025. I'm very split on, like, really, dude, this is a tough year, because I think, honest to God, you can swap Silksong, you can swap Split Fiction, you can swap Metroid Prime 4 and put in Death Stranding 2, put in potentially Ghost of Yotei, put in potentially Blueprints, put in potentially, Night Rain. Do you look at something like Night Rain, if it has a crazy tail on it, or new updates, new features added in that increase the player count exponentially, or it just consists and kind of maintains a strong sales trajectory over the following months, and it ends up being one of the best selling games of the year. And also, I mean, you're talking about Elden Ring base game 2022, you're talking about Erd Tree 2023 or 2024, and then now Night Rain 2025. The other 2 were nominated for Game of the Year, so what's to say Night Rain won't be as well? I mean, I hope not. I think that'd be crazy, but at the same time, I could see it, So we are in interesting times with a whole lot of potential Game of the Year candidates, Game of the Year nominees fighting for that top 6 to get in. So let me know in the comments down below what you think about this list. Do you think I'm crazy? Let me know what your list is looking like right now, the 6 games you think will be nominated. Hit me in the comments and sound off, man. I'm very, very split on this list. I think it could go a number of different ways, and I even think there's a small chance that something like The Outer Worlds 2 could just really surprise the shit out of people. So yeah, a lot of interesting possibilities on the board. Let me know in the comments below what you think about all of this. And yeah, man, subscribe if you are new and enjoy the content and want to see more of it. And if you're like, hey, I'm already subscribed and I want to support even further, consider heading over to Patreon and supporting there, or becoming a YouTube member. Same perks for either membership. And yeah, exclusive, I got top 10 movies over there, top 10 TV shows. No, I don't have top 10 movies yet. I need to do that one. I have top 10 TV shows, top 10 albums, and then, some other exclusive drops over there, as well as the ability to submit questions to the podcast at the end of each and every single week. So, yeah, head on over there, check that out if you feel so inclined, and I appreciate y'all so much for tuning in. Yeah, man, take it easy, guys. I'll see y'all in the next video. Goodbye.